Greetings, friends. My name is Paul Thompson, and I am the pastor at Huntersville United Methodist Church with my dear friend and colleague, Steve Autrey.
I just wonder, when people at Huntersville hear that you're still their pastor, how do they respond?
With shock and amazement.
Because how many years are you in now?
I'm just approaching my 8th year.
They're
finishing
like,
my
we
8th
thought
year.
by now,
Yeah.
surely this guy would be gone.
But we're here on the third day of this podcast for this week, as we are in our sermon series on the book of Acts. Last couple of days, we've been talking around this passage in Acts chapter 3 about Peter and John and this man born lame who finds healing outside the beautiful gate. And today we want to really focus in on what Peter says and about this healing when they get this man inside of the temple area. And I think it's so fascinating, Steve, that it gives Peter the opportunity once again to preach that sermon. And as you commented a couple of days ago, we really only have about one sermon we all proclaim, and that's is all about Jesus.
And the people at Denver are hoping I finally get to that good one. But this does give Peter that platform to proclaim the gospel, that Jesus has come, Jesus has lived, Jesus has died, and Jesus has been resurrected. And that is at the heart of the gospel, and that therefore gives us access to God. I love this statement here in chapter 3, verse 12. After the healing happens, when Peter saw it, everybody's utterly astonished.
Yeah.
And when Peter saw
We're
not
not used to seeing something, a lame man starts walking, it blows our minds.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you saw a bona fide miracle, it's an appropriate response, but Peter is almost incredulous in the way he responds to them. You Israelites, which is interesting. He doesn't call them you sons of Abraham or you children of God. It's you Israelites. Why do you wonder at this, and why do you stare at us as though by our own power or piety we made him walk? In other words, why are you surprised God is acting in this world?
And that's so funny to think about. Are we surprised when God does something? Because we shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be a regular expectation in the church and around. God is actively working in the world. Why would we be surprised? And obviously we do see it in many ways through the medical community. Even this whole vaccination thing has been a remarkable thing.
It's been a miracle.
Grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, that we can actually sit in the same room together
without a mask on,
right?
and not endanger one another.
We may be a danger to one another, but it's not through COVID-19.
Right.
And Paul and I played golf together a couple of times. I've endangered him a few times.
I stay way back.
You should. You should.
Yeah.
But they're surprised that they see God act. And Peter is like, really? You're surprised at this? But then this gives him the opportunity to do what?
So he starts speaking that sermon that we're going to hear again several times throughout Acts, and basically said, you killed the Son of God. You killed the Messiah. But God knew what you were going to do, and so God raised him from the dead, and because God did, it has reshaped the cosmos. And now the power of God is at loose in the world, and it can even heal lame people. It can help them walk. It can take the shame from people and set them free. It can take the blind and help them see. It can do remarkable things, all because of the power of God in Jesus Christ. And Peter says, though you killed him, God set us free from in that.
And if you wanted a Cliff Notes, I don't know if people even use Cliff Notes. Maybe you remember what those were just brief summations of entire books. If you wanted to sum up all of the gospel in a few sentences, then all you need is Acts chapter 3, verses 11 through 26. Because it is Peter, it's what we call charisma, which is the teaching of the early church. It's the basics, the fundamentals of who Jesus is, what he did, and what he is doing.
It's the Cliff Notes. It's the gospel in a nutshell, right. Almost like a creed formulation.
It is. It's very similar to that. And it gives, again, the fact that it gives this person of Peter, who has been transformed by the gift of the Spirit, the ability to stand up in the belly of the beast, so to speak. And if you remember, 50 days or so earlier, again, we find Peter cowering in the courtyard of Caiaphas, denying to even just one person that he knew Jesus. And now this transformation has happened where he is standing up in the midst of the very temple. He's standing up to those who could do him the most harm. And he is boldly saying, this is the truth that I know and the truth I want to share with you.
So I think what the church is still wrestling with today, and while we often sometimes find ourselves limited both in the power of our faith and in the power of what we expect God to be doing in the world, is that we fail to make the connection that the power of the Holy Spirit is at work in the world and can do marvelous things. And yet the component that unleashes that power is the power of faith.
It is.
It's belief. It's willing to say out loud, and it's willing to say, I believe God can do that. And it opens up that whole myriad of possibilities to see that, so that God can do truly miraculous things.
One of the images for the early church is a boat out at sea. And I think about often the church as we experience it in our day and age, especially in North America. There's a lot of hand-wringing. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of concern. Many churches aren't doing well. The church attendance has been on decline in America for the last 40 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of worry about that. But one of the things it makes me think about is that image of the boat. Are we the boat out there on the sea? Are we adrift because we failed to put up the sail?
So one of the things that Steve and I talked about earlier that I think bears commenting right now is when the church is at ease, when the church has smooth sailing, we don't tend to go very far. But when the church faces persecution through belief, when the church faces odds, is at odds with the culture, because we hold fast and true to who we are, the church actually grows.
Yeah.
It has been said that in our day and age, what the church needs is a good persecution. I don't think any of us really wants that, but it's the idea that even though the church might be persecuted, it always grows in persecution. We look at the places where the gospel is quickly spreading these days. It's not in the easy confines of our churches in America or England. It's in places like Southeast Asia, Africa,
China.
Where the gospel, China, where the gospel is people are trying to stamp it out. People are trying to contain it, and the power of the Holy Spirit just continues to be unleashed.
And I think part of that is those believers, their reliance upon the Spirit of God, that it's all they have. They don't have wealth or privilege. They don't have nice buildings to meet in. They don't have security. So they have to cling to that which can sustain them, and that's God.
Literally, their lives are on the line. Every time that they gather, they could be arrested, they could be sent off, their families could be persecuted, and yet their belief is that the power of the Holy Spirit is so strong in their lives that they're willing to make and risk everything.
And next week when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how this incident begins to set up a cycle of persecution for the early church. But rather than fade away and to never be heard from again, that persecution actually does just the opposite. So we'll take a look at that when we get back together next week. Thank you for being with us.
Hope you can come and see the sermons on this passage. That week will be you,
Yep.
And there'll be me at Huntersville. We are so grateful for your time. Look forward to seeing you at church on Sunday as we do further talk about these passages. May the Lord be with you and bless you till we see you again.
Thank you.